share together. We're going to capture and recording. So if there will be others joining, so if you're good with the recording, you will just say, I think got it is the thing to click. We'll probably stop the recording during small groups and then do it again when we come back, just because it's very difficult to edit out. But in the series, just as Joan did this time, we'll always enter with a little bit of silence. We're going to have a segment of teaching from Claudio, our key teacher. We'll have an opportunity to have some small group conversation. We'll come back from the small groups to bring that together with large group. And then Claudio will be able to kind of respond and interact with that, and then is going to be giving us some assignments, some work, some ritual to do in between the 2 weeks, every 2 weeks when we're going to be coming together. Joan's selection of the passage from Isaiah about rend your hearts, not your garment. If there is anyone who I think can be a guide to all of us in these times for rending our hearts, is actually this very heartful, heart-centered friend, or a person that I like to call my friend, Claudio Carvalhaes. And Claudio, it is such a privilege to have you join us this Lent. And Claudio did a similar Lenten series for Ghost Ranch last Lent, and that's where we had the opportunity to work together. You probably saw from his bio that Claudio is currently, teaches at Union Theological Seminary. Not only a man of heart, or a human in our times of heart, but a great thinker and theologian and philosopher, and brings that brain or that thinking and that heart space together. And so that's the intention of this series, is that we can integrate those parts of ourselves and the part of our faith tradition too, that sometimes needs that expansion out of the box. So Claudio, also his book, Liturgies from Below, is a great container for helping us understand how we will ritually kind of move through these weeks as well. So without further ado, please just, maybe hands together or whatever, but a welcome to Claudio, who joins us from New Jersey this evening. Thank you, Claudio.
Thank you, Stephen, for this joyful introduction, and to see you all here. I'm just seeing my precious sister Denise, who lives not far from me in New York, and I haven't seen her for ages. And Denise is from a family that I love dearly. It's a fantastic family, and she has 2 daughters, and I'm so in love with Denise, so that's why I have to say it. But I'm so glad to see you all here, and thank you for coming. And during this 3 weeks, what we are going to do is to compose a story, right? Compose a story using Lent, which I assume everybody's acquainted or know what Lent is. I guess so. If there's anybody who has no idea what Lent is, raise your hand, and then we'll go slower. But I think everybody knows. So good. So we're going to put Lent and the cross together with the earth and what is going on in our time, and how to go through this time together. How to find ways to give a grammar to the faith in our time. How do we feel and use our senses to perceive, to hear, to touch, to taste, to smell, to see, and to relate in ways that we can find sustenance, mutual sustenance. So one thing that is fundamental for us here is to understand that Lent or any other worship, Christian worship, is an individual thing. Of course, we have our individual practices, and you're going to be sent with homework to do some things, but it is always collective, right? And Lent is a movement through this time together. So we're going to hold each other during this time, and we are going to bless each other during this time. And so I wanted to thank Joan and the fantastic work that the New Mexico and El Paso Region Interfaith and Power and Light does, and Stephen also for inviting me. So I'm very grateful. We're going to have 3 meetings, right, during this month. And each time we'll think together about Lent and 3 issues, right? We are going to connect Lent and then the cross of Jesus, and then connect with three issues: fears, grief, and the earth. And they are all being intertwined and interconnected through these three days. But you're going to focus on this 3 axis, so to speak, right? The which is, how is it that we're going to name the things that we need to name during this process, and we understand how we do it, because Lent gives us this opening, this space from which we claim community, strength, and the presence of God amidst ourselves. So let me then start with Lent, since you all know well what Lent is. It's just a refreshing or remind us of what Lent might be for each one of us. But as we know, Lent is this 40 days, right? The quadragésima of that reminds us of Jesus fasting also in the desert, according to the Gospels, before his ministry, where he then faces the temptation by Satan. But it is also a reminder of all the times that Jesus went to the desert and stay there, because he needed to listen, to attune his life, his spiritual life with this material life, his thinking mind with his intuition, which we tend to be so much of thinking minds, right? And thinking and understanding, and we have very little trust for intuition, that which we feel, and when we know from the heart and don't know exactly from the mind, from the cognito, the explanation, the full knowing based on this and that, but from the intuition, that which visits us and asks us all the time, are you listening? Are you listening? And so the question for us during this Lent is to feel that small voice within us telling us, can you hear it? And I hope that during this time, it will be both a collective movement that we're going through, but also an individual time where you can respond to this question, can you hear it? But you ask me, but Claudio, hear what? Precisely, I respond to you. Exactly it. What? And that has to do with each one of ourselves and our own path. What is it now that you need to hear? That there is a small voice coming within and through, but hasn't found a way to find an open space within our hearts. So I don't know how Joan is going through her life. And I don't know what is this small voice that she perhaps is already, she knows that might be there, but don't quite know fully. Or the knees can hear it, but it's still confusing. That the tuning of our soul to the language that cannot be spoken, that cannot be explained. That's the work of the Lent. Is to go to a place that we don't often go. But to do that, there's need pause. There's need to be lost in the desert. If you are too assured of things, this voice will never come. This voice comes when we are somewhat allowed ourselves to be frail. And don't be afraid of the vulnerability of our hearts. Because that voice is disguised in the strength of that vulnerability. So where is this voice that you need to hear? To go into Lent is to go into grief, is to go into repentance. And the notion of self-denial, simple living, preparation of the body for the coming of Easter, all of that are major themes in the Christian theology of Lent, right? And I love the Eastern Orthodox Church. They call this season a bright sadness. Oh, isn't that beautiful? A bright sadness. Which reminds me of what John read to us, which is fantastic, right? It's this Lent is not a contradiction of terms, but it is two things living together without tension. Sadness and joy, lightness and burden, health and disease, fullness and emptiness, light and darkness. Without having to go against what we are going through. It's just like a friend of mine who was a member of my church, and he was 44 years old, and he discovered he had brain in his head, and I asked him, what do you think? And I said, do you ask God why? And he said, no. I asked myself, why not? I'm still trying to understand that. I'm not going to say much about it because I'm still trying to understand. But that notion that darkness is not necessarily a place to fear, but perhaps a place to thrive. Not a place to be scared only, but to know that the fear that we are feeling during that darkness is telling us something that we need to hear. But because you are so afraid of the fear, and the fear is taking us over again, we cannot hear what the fear is telling us that we need to hear. Is when some of my kids get angry and I have to tell them, so what is anger telling you that you need to hear in order to make friends with anger? So, I don't know if you have read, you all know Howard Thurman, and he has this beautiful notion of luminous darkness. And he engages that from a place of a black man living in a racist society. And he's saying, but it is like, and then he mentions very beginning of his book called Luminous Darkness. It says, there's somebody who dives, is a diver, and go deep into the darkness of the ocean. And as this person goes deep, it starts to be scared because darkness starts to take over. And he's immediately eager to pull himself out of it, or herself out of it, because he's afraid. But if the diver goes a little longer, when this fear is able to subdue, then there's a luminosity in this darkness that only when we dive deep that we can see. I wish I could get that courage to go that deep, to dive that deep, and to find the luminous darkness. So perhaps Easter will be an attempt to learn what it is that luminous darkness means. Or, as Joan read from Rumi, what hurts you blesses you. Darkness is your candle. Your boundaries are your quest. Ooh, see, there is no contradiction. One thing belongs to the other. What hurts you blesses you. Oh, why, God? What hurts you is what blesses you. Darkness is your candle. Oh, so Lenten is this going through the desert. And I believe because of the climate change, liberation theology used to use the metaphor of the Exodus, right? For to start the love of God. And I think for this time, we need the desert as the metaphor for our times. And because the desert has so much richness in it, and at the same time, it is difficult. Every desert is rich, but some are way more difficult than others. 1/3 of our land is already covered under deserts, waterless, vegetationless, colorless deserts, which forms this spectacular landforms across the world. Some are too extreme in its temperature, either cold or hot. There's not much diversity. And we are seeing the destruction of diversity everywhere. The diversity of thinking, the diversity of belongings, the diversity of races, the diversity of peoples, diversity of faith. If you pay attention, this capitalist neoliberal thing and this colonization that's still going on everywhere, it's reducing the diversity of everything into few things. The same way that white supremacy only want white people. The agribusiness cannot deal with diversity. Have you noticed that we have so many animals, but everything is being killed? And we have pretty much 5 animals only that we are willing to live with. Cows, chickens, pigs, cats, birds, few birds, dogs, few. But we cannot live with other animals. That's why we're so scared that anything that we see that is not one of those that we are used to, that we made them pets, we squeeze them, we crush them, we kill them. And we are going through the 6th extinction of so many animals and insects. And that means that our food is going to be miserable. the lack of cross-pollination because of the death of bees, because of agrotoxins. So all of this will create deserts. And that's when we need to go through. And then the last part is to say, to live in the desert is also to be able to name our fears. To go through Lent is to be able to name our fears. So let me tell you some of mine. I think all of us are afraid of the war in Ukraine, right? Especially with the developments of the nuclear weapons. You know, the Cold War of so many years, it doesn't die too easily. And the ogivs, or I don't know how to say the ogivas, of the United States and Russia, of nuclear weapons, are all pretty much the same. Way more powerful than the one in Hiroshima. That's the fear. The fears of COVID, of this unresolved pandemic times. The fear of being sick. Am I going to be one of these people, even though I'm vaccinated, that are going to have symptoms? They're going to be with me for the rest of my life. The fear of losing beloved ones. The fear of losing the life we knew. Just yesterday in church, one person said, "Oh, life is so different. I don't even know what kind of life I have anymore." What are your fears, my friend? I'm really afraid of what kind of world I'm going to give to my kids. That keeps me up at night. What world am I going to give to my kids? What kind of world are we going to have that is going to be alive? So we are going to be divided in groups. And I wanted to name your fears. Personal ones or collective ones. Because of something that happened to me in my childhood, I'm so afraid of being locked. So I'm claustrophobic. Oh, every time I go into an elevator, it's hard. Every time an airplane closes the doors, that's my constant fear. Then I have these larger fears with the earth. Then I have to ask myself, why, and how do I move? How? Because fears can be like water without movement, and the waters that cannot flow, they die and start to smell and start to bring diseases. What are the ponds of our lives that need movement? That need to flow, that need to open up so that new water can come in. Some of our fears that we are stuck with for so long. Some of our pains that we stuck with our pains for so long. During Lent, can we learn better ways to relate with it? To talk to it, to listen to it. So as we go into groups, I would ask you to share with one another, what are the fears that you carry in your heart during this Lent? That's pretty much it. What are the fears? And then when we come back, we are going to connect that with the cross. Because, remember the disciples. I don't know what fears Jesus had. we tend to see Jesus as God, right? As brave. He doesn't have any fear. He's just fearless, carrying that cross. And what? I don't think so. What were the fears that he carried? I mean, just before Gethsemane, that is a man filled with fears. God, take away this cup. I don't know if I can make it. I don't know if I can take it. Oh, how many prayers like that have we had in our lives? And yet here we are. I don't know if you're going through a situation right now that's your prayer. God, I don't know if I can make it. But then look at the disciples, all fearful. Peter denies, I have nothing to do with this Jesus. Everybody away, far away. At the same time, this mix of fear and seeing their world crumble down right in front of their eyes. I gave 3 years to this man who's now dying in such a shameful way. What have I done? Everything that I believed is not here anymore. That's another question. How much of the belief system that you had that doesn't fit to our times anymore? And perhaps Lent is a new way of reshaping, rephrasing new forms of belief. That cross held Jesus. And the only thing Jesus had was that wooden piece of wood. Oh, and perhaps that's what the only thing we have is the left trees standing in the world. But I'm going to talk more about the trees when we come back and connect that with the trees, with the wooden tree. So, Stephen, those groups are not gentle, right? They're just like all of a sudden you
disappear.
You disappear, and then it's like, oh, it's gone.
Our heads are all here.
That's right. We disappear and we live in the clouds for 3 seconds, and then they toss us back from the cloud. All right, friends, let's share some of the things that you have mentioned in your groups. And this is good because then we can learn with each other and see where we are all going. Who wants to share?
Well, I'll start.
Thank you.
Sure. Well, as you can imagine, I mean, we had a lot of overlap, but I think I'll just kind of list them for you in a way. The idea of a third world war, the notion that there could be civil wars that break out in various places. Of course, climate change and what it's doing, but the incapacity of humans to wake up to it is the fear. And the what would I say? The lack of the message of the radical Jesus getting through to us. That So nuclear threat, which is, part of a world war, aging vulnerability, losing the people you are closest to you, your partner, your spouse, at this point in life. Some of us have gray hair. That the church distorts so many messages, and what would I say, is influencing people in a very negative way. I mean, it's not a fear, I guess it's happening. And that the American people are so easily led, seems, or many, into very almost like cult-like thinking, and very scary. And then lastly, the fear of losing helpful, with all like the changes in one city or closings of this and, merging of that, people losing helpful institutions like hospitals or, that kind of thing. And not having enough years to get it right, not having enough time, the fear of not. And lastly, of course, the whole notion of white supremacy, the fear in that, and toward Black, Brown, Indigenous peoples here and everywhere, really. So that's our list.
Ooh, this is so powerful. My goodness. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think you encapsulate life in so many ways here. I think we're all seeing the erosion of the social structures and the things that were there before they're not there anymore. And the fear of democracy. I was listening to this analyst saying that our democratic life might survive 2 more cycles of elections, but then after that we don't know. And so all of this, right? All of this to keep in tension, the vulnerability and the loss. I mean, I got married with my wife is a widow who lost her husband, and my 3 kids are afraid of us dying all the time. And when that is on me now. Every time I travel, I mean, I cannot die. but yeah, all of those things together and lives in our bodies. And I think naming it helps us to give at least some shape, so that it doesn't go like metastasis everywhere when you don't know. But if you give shape to it and then find ways to understand it and to fight against, or to give ourselves to it and give it to God. All the sense of how we navigate each one of them, and in what ways are we supposed to strengthen our communities, strengthen our societies, or strengthen our hearts. One thing in the pandemic that was fundamental for all of us is to tell ourselves, calm down. That's the power that we have, to tell ourselves, calm down. Calm down. We can do this. Calm down. And if you haven't learned that, that's still something that is key for us to go through this and learn how to breathe and pray through this. Oh, could go on and on. Thank you, Dorothy. That's powerful. Powerful. Thank you. The other groups, anything else that was not mentioned or you want to share?
Well, some of our fears were more inward, being shy, doing wrong, not being enough, participation in ongoing colonization, just in the way we live and use of resources. And of course, we did talk about all the aspects, or many of the aspects of climate change, loss of habitat, dwindling water supplies, forest fires. One of us named that don't know if they could live through, she could live through another election cycle with Donald Trump. And then just wondering, just the fear of not knowing what's coming. I think about what was named as the social structure have shifted and really shown us where there's some holes. And the usual markers are gone, things that we kind of counted on as we were growing up and becoming adults and being adults. The usual markers of turning 16 and graduating and what would happen after college or whatever the path was, but many of those markers are not either there or the same.
And it's so powerful. My goodness. Woo, you people, can we stay here together for 3 more hours, please?
I was going to ask you, when do we start drinking?
Exactly. Oh, I love that. And you see, those things, being adults is the hardest thing to be an adult. It's the hardest thing. And we still don't know. And we're still trying to figure it out. Because we still wrestle with the things that we've always felt when we were teenagers. And being wrong, not enough, being shy. All of us carry some of those things that we are embarrassed by, that we feel that we feel awkward, that we feel that we should not be or do much of this or that because of that. This fear of being off. And it's so much a part of it. So much a part of it. The fear of not knowing, right? And I wonder, when was it that we knew something? When was it that we learned that we knew something? Because I think we need to learn what never changed, which is we have no idea of the future. And that is the knowledge that it was already there before we were born and it's going to be here after we die. And that's why Jesus said, you want to live? Look there. Can you see those birds? They are not looking for, am I going to have food tomorrow? See the field, the wheat, the lily. They don't care what's going to come. Because Jesus knew that our God is a God of the manna of today. You have your bread and your butter and your tea and your coffee today? Yes. You have the love of somebody today? Somebody, doesn't matter who, is your neighbor, is your family, is your spouse, is your cat, is your bird, is the squirrel who comes to visit you, is the tree next to your house. You're never alone. You're never alone. And you'll never be. Oh, so much here. Whoosh, thank you, Anne. And the other group, want to share something?
Well, I'll just add a couple of items that we all shared, which had to do with the deep distress over our young ones, both of the humans and of all species, and the deep sadness that the possibility, that the potential that we know is there is latent sometimes, and yet we know that possibility exists to really come home to the whole matrix of life, that possibility might be truncated by events that are facing us right now. And that sense of loss of possibility for especially the young ones of all species. Deep, deep pain.
Karen, thank you. Yes. And one thing to go through this, it is through rituals. to hold on to rituals. Tell me your prayer that you learn how to pray before you go to bed. What is that prayer that you have? I know you do. Don't you have a prayer before you go to bed? You don't have a prayer before you go to bed. Come on. Everybody always have a prayer before you go to bed. Give me one.
I say, thank you for this amazing day.
That's what I say. Thank you for this day. Thank you for my love.
Yeah. What do you say? What do you say? You don't have a prayer before you go to bed. Ay, 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 ay.
That's one. One is also.
That's good. No, Carla, you
No.
said it, Dorothy. I want to hear the others. Tell me your prayer.
May love and light continue to enwrap everyone and everything this night.
Amen. Yes. Give me your prayer. And if you don't have a prayer, that's your task for this Lent. To create a prayer to say every night. I was teaching my son to pray at night. And I was telling him of the fear of darkness and a fear of not knowing. And then I said, give us a good night of sleep. You're not afraid of the night. You're not afraid of the dark. And we start praying it every night. And then we do pray every night with that prayer. And then he began one is and now guide me through the stars, guide me through the night, and wake me up with the morning shine. That was his prayer. And we do it every night. And you know what I learned? That I had in my head, oh, I'm gonna pray this, and it was a good night of sleep. You're not afraid of the night, you're not afraid of the dark. So I have to have him not be afraid of dark or the night. And I realized, my friend, that was a prayer for me.
Yeah.
I was praying for myself with the good excuse of my son. What is the prayer that is going to give you sustenance over those fears? Now, this is a task for you for the next 2 weeks. You're going to name you're going to write down your prayers, and you're going to say, what is the prayer that I need to respond to this? God, well, I'm afraid that I'm going to die. Then my prayer will be, shall I live? Shall I die? I am in your hand. You're afraid that your loved one will die. You say, God, thank you for the one I have. And I'm going to love my spouse forever in every minute until you give this person to me. God, I am embarrassingly shy, but with you, I'm so free that I can even dance for you. God, climate change is upon us. And perhaps we won't have a chance to change what we need to change. But I give the earth to you as I give myself to you. See? Small prayers. That's what you need to do this week. Can we all do a prayer? Can we all promise to do a prayer for next time? So that's one of the homework. A prayer. Can be a short one, can be a long one, can be a short one. That's one thing that you need to do. The second thing that you need to do is to discover a tree, the closest tree to your house. Can be your backyard, can be in front of your house, can be in neighbor, or in a place that you can have, a tree that you can go to, that you can visit, that you can sit, that you can lay with, that you can be with. If it isn't somebody's yard, perhaps not, but perhaps you go to a park, but you have to go to a tree. And what you need to do, it would be best if you do every day, but you do as many times as you want. So you're gonna go to this tree, you're gonna establish a relationship. How are you gonna do it? You're gonna be there, you're gonna look. You're gonna spend 20 minutes with that tree. You're gonna walk around and you're gonna pay attention to the roots, to the trunk, to the branches. Perhaps you have leaves, perhaps a different kind. And then you're gonna discover what tree is that. If you don't know, you can ask somebody. Take a picture, ask somebody. There's this app that I use because I'm terrible to know anything. There's this app that we can use that we can take a picture and it tells you exactly what tree it is. And then you're gonna take a picture of that tree and you're going to put, there is one thing that our friends got together and I'm gonna show it to you now. Share screen. Here. It's called Kudo board. So you go here and you're gonna receive it, and then you have to create an account and put your email and password, and then it's gonna come here and it's gonna be a dashboard. And the dashboard that you can say upload a tree. And my friends, here's my tree. Oh, this was the ghost wrench. Let me go back to where it was. See, add image. And then you go here on this add image. And so upload image. I have one from here, from one of my own files called Wonder. Here's Wonder. I go to her every time to pray. So I got to know Wonder. And I have many stories with Wonder already. So what I want you to do is to go there and sit with your tree, get to know it, research, go online. What does the tree like? How does it feed with the sun? What are the birds that come to it? What kind of seed it has, and the roots and how it relates to other beings. You're gonna do that, and then you're gonna sit down. You're gonna introduce yourself. Ha! You're gonna introduce yourself to the tree. Say, hello, my name is Patricia. I know I'm a bit embarrassed here and I'm kind of shy, but I wanted to say hi. And you might look around just to make sure that nobody's there, and then you continue. So I know that you are an oak tree. And I don't know how long you were here, but I like you because, thank you. And you take, you know what? You take a glass of water. And as you finish, you blast the tree and you pour the water as a gift to the tree. Everything like that is written down. That is going to be sent to you by email tomorrow. Then next day you go back and you circle around and you talk to the tree again. Follow, hello. I hope you remember. My name is Christine. And you continue to call this conversation. And so that's how you're going to do. And think the tree, and that's the last thing, think the tree as a person. That's how indigenous people see, not more than human people. It's a being. It's not for decoration. That tree is not there for decoration. You know, every day, 1 million trees are killed in Brazil. 1 million every day, assassinated. The tree of Jesus, the cross, was a wooden tree. And we need the trees. to support ourselves. So if you feel weary, if you feel weak, if you feel sick, put your back on the back of the tree or your chest on the tree and say a prayer and say, I'm feeling weak today. Hold me on like God, like that tree held Jesus. And I want to continue. That's what you need to do. And that's how the tree are going to remind you of all of the trees of the world and the cross. And this tree will carry you through this Lent. Like the tree that carried Jesus through that final moment of his life. Go with your intuition, relate. And I can't wait to see your pictures and hear your relations with that tree and the prayer that we are going to do to say at night. Thank you, my friends. Any questions, anything? I don't want to keep going because we're already over time. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, friends. And my email will go with tomorrow with some information of a video. Oh, there's a fantastic video that I'm going to send to you with Robin Kimmerer. You're going to love that video. And so watch it. And you can email me if you have questions or anything. But you know that I know your names and I will have you in every night. I'm going to say a prayer for you. I promise. Blessings to you, and I already can't wait to see you in 2 weeks. Bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.